Okay, so today we are going to do a video where we talk about kind of dark, gritty settings and characters and stories in general. What I'm kind of trying to do with these let's discuss videos that I'm toying with is to just take a trope or a character type or a thing that we're familiar with and just chat a little bit deeper about it, what I like about it, why I like it, that sort of thing. The first one I did was time travel, and I talked about like different types of time travel and what I found is the type that I personally like. Then we did a character type, the big guy. I'm still mad at myself for not including Toph in that video. She belonged there. How dare I? And this time we're going to talk about a more dark, gritty setting. So when I say dark and gritty, I'm not exclusively talking about grimdark, and in fact, I'm largely probably not. I mean, the line of what makes something grimdark is a little bit fuzzy, and I'm still trying to figure out where I fit in the grimdark world, because there are certainly some stories that I like, but I definitely have a line of how grimdark or how dark I want to go. I love stories like the First Law trilogy, Gentlemen Bastards, and back there is the Burning series. I definitely like stories that have a more seedy and dark tone to them and that go places that a lot of stories don't, where we follow not the hero of the story. We follow someone who is, them succeeding would not benefit the world, but we still root for them. But there definitely is a line where it's too much for me. But why do I enjoy this? Why do I enjoy a darker setting, characters that are kind of anti-heroes that are, like Locke is a thief and a swindler and a liar. He's definitely not trying to make society better. He's not a Robin Hood by any means. Glokta, not a good guy in the First Law trilogy. Tao, out for revenge, very selfish, not trying to make society better, right? And I really think it breaks down to the psychology of the character. Following the character that wants to save the day, that wants to make all the right choices, that wants to go do all the good things can be good sometimes, but I guess a more hopeful, optimistic story, I have to be in the right mood for it. What I find far more fascinating is following a character that I would never want to be like, that I would probably not like to interact with or have in my circle of friends or even acquaintances. I think the reason it's so interesting to me is the psychology of it. What's fascinating to me is a character that is that nuanced bad guy, but we're following them and we're getting a little bit deeper into their mind, where we see how human they are. We see their struggles and we see the places where they would help people, the places where they would sacrifice themselves for someone, the different levels of their kind of goodness, while still seeing them choose selfishness and harming others for the sake of their own agenda. We still see them doing things that make them a bad character, but they're relatable or at least understandable. I guess to me, what makes a person do horrible acts other than just, I really like terrible things, or like I'm just really messed up in the head, but seeing what brings a person to the point that they're at is fascinating to me. And I think a large part of it is what I just discussed. A large part of it is just the psychology of it. I find it fascinating to get deeper into the minds of that type of person and understand what makes them tick a little bit. But then I think also a large part of it is because I am a very character-focused reader. I tend to, when I'm reading a book, I want to find a character to latch onto and to follow and to love. And if I can have that in a story, I'm going to enjoy the story a lot more. Stories that are really, really, really plot focused, that are go, 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 and that don't really focus on the depth of the character very much. We don't have a lot of breathing room to just really know a character in and out. Those stories are usually not my thing. And these more dark, gritty settings and character types tend to be very, very character focused. And I think that's a large part of why I like them so much, is because I'm getting deep into the head of that character, because I'm getting to know that character in and out to the point where they feel completely human to me. Future Murphy here, popping in to do a better job of summarizing things. What it really comes down to is that I just really love exploring deeply complex, very real feeling characters. Obviously, we can find this in any genre and in any level of darkness in a story. Stormlight Archive it has a lot of dark themes to it, but overall there's a huge feeling of hope to it. Kaladin is definitely a character that has a hero's complex, that wants to go save people, but we explore a lot of complex things within him because we deal with a lot of the struggle of how hard it is to choose to be a hero, to choose to do these heroic things, and how much you sacrifice in that. Plus, Kaladin has a big struggle with depression, and there's a lot of complexity in exploring that in his arc. So obviously stories don't have to be dark in order to have the elements that I like, but I think what I'm trying to articulate here is that a lot of the darker settings following darker characters, a lot of this will oftentimes have a more character-centric and a more really getting deep into the psychology of them and what makes them the way they are, and making them a much more complex character. Because when we have a dark setting, a dark story, a dark plot line, a bad character, we need that complexity to that character in order for the story to be compelling. If they're just a straight villain, if they just are mustache twirling, want to ruin the day instead of save the day, and there's not much complexity to them, then what are we really getting out of the story? But getting deep into the psychosis of that character and showing that character being human and likable despite being horrible and someone that we wouldn't want to be and we wouldn't want to win the day in real life, that is so interesting. You get it in other stories. Bachman is a great example of that. We get a lot of complexity from his characters, and he generally has very hopeful stories. Literary fiction in general is a genre that I love for this type of thing. I obviously like a lot of other types of stories. Jane Austen is nothing like anything that I'm talking about in this video. Jurassic Park is very plot-centric story, not super deep into characters. So I like a lot of different types of stories, but I guess with this video, what I was trying to do is kind of dig in a little bit deeper about why the darker settings and darker stories are something that I am oftentimes drawn to, and why I really, really like that. And I think it comes down to really getting deep into the humanity of a person, what makes them tick, what makes them like that, being able to relate to a character on that level, and yet a character so different from me that I can't relate to them, that I don't understand them, but I would like to, because I see humanity in them despite who they choose to be and the choices they choose to make, is fascinating to me. Characters like Glokta, Manza, Locke, Tao, these are all characters that I don't relate to, but that I feel like I know them inside and out. I feel like they're humans in my life, and I want to see what their life brings them. I want to follow them because they feel so real to me, and because studying them and exploring them is so fascinating to me, because they're nothing like myself or anyone that I know or want to be around in real life. But that's not exclusive to dark stories. I'm refraining from saying grim dark throughout this, because a lot of the examples I'm giving aren't actually grim dark. But anyway, that's not exclusively true for these things. You have, like I said, Kaladin, but then you also have characters like a man called Ove. Ove, oh, that's not on my shelf. I don't own that book yet. Ove is my favorite character of all time that I've ever read, and I feel like he's the most human character I've ever read. He's the most real fictional character I've ever met. I know him so well, and I feel like he was a genuine part of my life for a while. I adore that feeling. So it doesn't only come from these types of settings and stories and character types. It's just that you're just about guaranteed to get that type of character from these stories, because the story wouldn't be compelling without a very complex character. And The darker settings oftentimes don't rely on plot as much. They more rely on the characters and what makes them tick and what's making them do what they're doing, which is more my style of reading in general. So I oftentimes get the character types and the amount of focus on characters that I want from these stories, though that's not exclusively true. And I can definitely enjoy a good person on a good quest trying to do good things. Kaladin, Frodo, definitely possible for me. It's just, I guess I just wanted to explore why I'm drawn to these stories a lot of times. And it really comes down to deeply exploring characters, which is all over the place, but very specifically, I'm almost guaranteed to get it in these stories. Back to my wrapping up the video clips now. Anyway, I'd love to discuss this further with you guys. I'm really curious, what are the things that make you love grimdark? Because, not just grimdark, but darker stories, darker settings and character types, because I think that there are a lot of reasons why people are drawn to these things, and a lot of people are going to have different answers than I did for why it works so well for me. But then I'd also love to hear the people who want the really hopeful and the stories that make them feel good and make them feel happy. I'd love to hear from you. Why is this your preference, and why are the darker settings maybe not your preference? I think it's all very fascinating because reading is so very subjective, and an individual's experience with a book is going to be so personal to them. So I really like kind of breaking down what is it that makes something work so well for different types of people. So anyway, I would love to hear from you. Why does this setting, this character type, this sort of story work well for a lot of people, and why does it not work well for them? Why do the more hopeful and light and happy stories work well for other people? Wherever you land on this scale, whatever you feel, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. Check out my Patreon if you feel like it. I'm there all the time. I post videos every Tuesday through Friday. I'll see you again soon. Bye.